X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z, or in this case, Alpha to Omega.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. Adam, do you know,
hey.
We've been doing this podcast for, at this point, I believe it is 4 years and some change?
Yeah, it's been, yes, definitely, yes.
It has been. Is it friggin' weird that we are just now getting to Age of Apocalypse, like talking about it? Like we've done 3 different stories from Age of Apocalypse, but we've not talked about the guts of Age of Apocalypse yet. And I'm here to tell you something, buddy. Age of Apocalypse is good.
It is, and I think I have trashed it in the past on the show.
I don't remember.
I humbly would like to say that I am 100% wrong. Rereading these stories for today's episode, it just is fantastic. So I'm really excited to talk about this, and really get into it, because you're right. We've talked about Generation Next. We've talked about Gambit and the Externals. We've done Legion Quest leading up to it.
We've done X-Men.
We did X-Men. So, we've been working our way through the era, 1995. And today we're going to really tackle, like you said, the guts with Alpha and Omega. But the way we're going to do this episode is a little bit different because of the way that we're going to rank these, right? So
yeah, we had a lot of discussion between you and me on what we were going to do with this. In fact, I think it was just a couple days before we were recording, we were DMing back and forth like, do we cut it like this? How about this? Do we change it? And what we ended up saying is, what we're going to cover on this is the core story of Age of Apocalypse. That's Astonishing X-Men, Amazing X-Men, and then the Alpha and Omega stories. Mm-hmm. Now, originally, we were just going to tag the Alpha and Omega stories to, like, Astonishing, I think it was. And that, as we kept rereading, didn't feel right, because Astonishing is its own standalone story, more or less. Same with Amazing being its own standalone story. So we said, forget it. What we're going to do is we're going to rank Alpha and Omega as one story. And you know what? That was the story that was suggested anyway, I think. Actually, I don't know what the suggestion was. I think the suggestion might have been Astonishing, but whatever. We're just doing it all. And all that was suggested by Patreon supporter Jay Van Veen. Jay went on over to patreon.com/comicsxf, dug deep down into their hearts and pocketbooks, and tossed a couple of coins into our coffers so that we could keep bringing you this show, keep bringing you all the great content that's over on comicsxf, and just vibe, really. And we're gonna vibe in the Age of Apocalypse now.
Can I want to do a little bit of build up to this before we get into Alpha.
I would love to hear your build up.
Well, this comes from a weird place. So I have a tendency to, buy weird X-Men ephemera. And
right. It's why you do this podcast with me, the other person on Earth who loves doing that.
So
the person on Earth who's bought a copy of TV Guide from the year 2000 because there's a Chris Claremont and Salvador Roja comic in it. It's
on my list. So I recently acquired the copy of February 1995's Disney Adventures magazine. And I did a thread about this on my Twitter account if you want to check it out. But one of the things that
Arthur Stacy, right?
Yes. But one of the things it mentions in there is a reference to something called Alter X, AELTER-X. And I believe we have some confirmation from Fabian Nicieza himself that was the working title for this. Now, I brought this up on our Slack after I did my Twitter thread, and our resident Marvel expert Zach Raberoff, who has read every Marvel comic that has ever been published, suggested to me that Wizard Magazine had also used that title. Now, he and I kind of did a little bit of detective work. I went back and looked at the issues leading up to this 38, 39, and 40 of Wizard Magazine. And the buildup is huge. There's these back-to-back articles that are like, X-Men's going to get canceled. We're hearing rumors that all of X-Men is going to get canceled, right? So fans are starting to freak out. This is in the middle of Legion Quest being published. And you finally get to Wizard Magazine number 40, right? So keep in mind that people are actually reading Wizard Magazine at this point. If you're
it was a big
about
deal.
Comic books, right? And you open the comic, and the very first thing you see is some Silver Age X-Men comics on fire, and then you flip the page to a 2-page spread of are some characters in shadow that kind of look like the X-Men, all surrounded by flames, and then you flip the page, and it's all of the books and their new names. And I just can't imagine, I was not 100% reading the books at this point, but people were going bananas over this. This was a huge event. This has never happened before.
What's important to understand is that at this point, there weren't websites where you could look up the solicits. You didn't know what was coming. It was, what does Marvel Age say if you picked that up? And because Marvel Age was still being published by this point, though it was on its last legs, I think. Because other places like Wizard would say, hey, these are the hot new books that are coming out. So sure, if you were a shop owner, you would get the solicits that are saying, hey, it's this, hey, it's this, hey, it's this. But the general public isn't getting that stuff. They don't know what's going on. They're not hearing the rumors. So it's a big swing. And when the X-Men books are the most fiscally successful thing Marvel has in 1995, even the idea of shaking that up and risking any attrition is a big swing.
Huge, because you're still in animated series territory, Toy Biz, X-Men toys, flying off the shelves. This is kind of this is the acme of X-Men popularity in the grander pop culture cosmos, if you don't count the movies. So, this is a big risk, and it all starts with X-Men Alpha, which I believe has. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say what's interesting with how it started, even in the before this. This was Scott Lobdell and Bob Harris's kind of brainchild to kick this off, but they were actually inspired by an episode of X-Men the Animated Series, One Man's Worth, which just had the high concept of how what if the X-Men's founder, Professor Charles Xavier, was killed? What happens if he dies in the past? And then how does all that keep going? The X-Men writers had seen a early script of this and really liked the concept and started making their own take for the summer. And it lines up with the release. So, I mean, one of the things that the X-Men animated series did, especially at this point, was try and keep itself in line with the comics if it could, or try and pull things from the comics. And One Man's Worth is a big example of that. Well, it's a big example of it going the other way, I guess. Is what I mean to say.
Absolutely.
One Man's Worth is pretty good too. Go check. People are going to tell you the entire animated series holds up. It doesn't. But this one where Apocalyptic Storm and Wolverine team up with Bishop and Shard to stop Professor Xavier from getting killed by Trevor Fitzroy in Nimrod. It's pretty good.
It sure is. Definitely worth checking out. So who's our creative team on our bookends here for Alpha and Omega?
So let's start with Alpha, and we'll swing back around to Omega.
Right.
So X-Men Alpha, number 1, the kickoff to Age of Apocalypse, a new world, a new beginning. It's written by Scott Lobdell with dialogue by Mark Waid, pencils by Roger Cruz and Steve Epting. Tim Townsend and Dan Panosian ink each of those pencilers, respectively.
And right off the bat, we are introduced to this alternate universe version of Bishop, who we will learn has carried over his memories from the 616. And we just start getting a barrage of, alternate universe versions of Unis, the Untouchable. We're getting this new lineup of the X-Men, which includes like Sabretooth and Wild Child, and it is crazy.
So Age of Apocalypse opens on a mountain of skulls. And the thing about Age of Apocalypse is it's a grim and gritty future, but also it is more self-aware than I think people give it credit for or recall. Like, Lobdell knows what he's doing here, and he knows he has to keep it a bit light. I mean, one of the things he does in this is bring in, like you said, a wild new cast. Magneto runs the X-Men now. He's married to Rogue. Iceman, Quicksilver, Sabretooth, Wild Child, Blink from Generation X, which, by the way, the Phalanx Covenant stuff had just ended like 6 months before this. So the fact that she died, like that's an open, what if she didn't die? What happens to her then? And it becomes interesting. We have Storm and Nightcrawler, and then Morph, who we'll talk about a bit more in Astonishing, but Morph, who is more or less a brand new creation. They say, oh, well, it was actually Changeling, that retcon character that died in 2 panels in the Silver Age X-Men, to convince us how Professor X really didn't die, which I think is freaking hilarious to pull such a weird deep cut.
But it's not the Morph from X-Men the Animated Series, who kind of had like a base appearance when he wasn't transforming into other people. This is a brand new character from whole cloth that later gets used in Exiles, and is this very slapstick.
Okay. To be very clear, this Morph is not the Morph that's used in Exiles.
Yeah, I guess who is the same version in Exiles?
Okay, well, only because Exiles pulls several Age of Apocalypse characters, including Blink and Sabretooth. This is explicitly not the Age of Apocalypse Morph that's in Exiles. None of that's relevant here. And honestly, it's not relevant there except for some weird plot where they have to deal with, this isn't Morph, but it kind of is, and I don't know how I feel about that, says Blink. Anyway.
Well, to your point, though, there is, for all of the darkness, the illustrations here by Roger Cruz are sort of light, a little bit of cartoony. These are big, bold colors that we're seeing on the page. And we are very quickly introduced to this world through a variety of different scene changes. So we get to meet the new X-Men. They get to meet the new Bishop. We get to meet Dark Beast. We get to meet this version of the Summers brothers. We get to meet this version of Apocalypse. We get to meet this version of Angel and Gambit. Angel is sort of running this haven called Heaven. That's sort of like a safe place. And
it's the bar from Casablanca. He runs the bar from Casablanca.
And very quickly over the course of this, it's very readable. We're getting introduced to the corners of this universe, and the premise of where we're going to go with this crossover, which, the structure of it is really interesting. Essentially, because of Bishop's vision, Magneto sends off all of these different teams to do a secret mission and go up against a bad, you know what I mean? And so that's where all the little miniseries
to fix the world,
go.
to fix
Right.
all of this. That's because that's the goal, and it's something that Magneto ends up struggling with throughout all of Age of Apocalypse, is that the world he knows is wrong. This isn't the right world, and at this point, this isn't just an alternate reality. The Emcron Crystal had rewritten all of reality so that this was the reality. Like that's the plot of Legion Quest. So Magneto struggles with that, but still makes the sacrificing decision of, no, his friend Charles died for all this. So he wants to honor that, and he wants to set the world right, because he truly believes that the world would be a better place if he had died and Charles Xavier had lived. Like that's what he believes.
Yeah, which is pretty intense, not only because of his own, desire for self-sacrifice, but because he and Rogue have this child. They have Charles Jr., not really Charles Jr.
Charles Lyncher.
Who, wouldn't exist in this other universe. So it's a big gamble.
They know he won't exist. They know that Magneto is, I guess at this point, missing and brain dead. Like that's what Bishop knows of Magneto. He knows that after all that, he's gone, and Magneto does some bad stuff, and he's willing to give up his everything he's ever done, because he knows that the dream of a better world will be there. And here's the thing. A lot has been made, especially recently, about Charles Xavier's dream of essentially assimilation and of, just harmony between humans and mutants, and how maybe that's not the best dream. But it is better than the genocidal maniac apocalypse taking over the world. Like, I think as far as political praxis, we can say that Charles Xavier, you could improve some of your philosophies and you could work better for mutant kind. Apocalypse genociding places left and right cannot be like, we have to learn how to accept a good enough thing when we're given two bad options, and one of them doesn't involve mass genocide on a global scale.
So we are getting the ramifications of what has happened here, and it does not look good. Apocalypse's mutants are in control. Humans are basically being eliminated. And
in North America specifically, which is where Apocalypse rules, he has not taken over Eurasia or Africa.
Or
this
South
was
one
America.
This is one of the graphic things that I absolutely loved when the trade paperbacks were coming out. I within the last year or so, I collected all of the gold holofoil trade paperbacks, and on the back of each one, it says in big letters, "America is dead." Period. So you know something is wrong here. So by the time we get to the end of Alpha and its beautiful wraparound chromium cover, if you bought that standalone issue, we've get a sense that Magneto is going to send the teams off on their missions. And so we're going to do something weird right now and just kind of put a pin in that story. We'll rank that with Omega at the end of the episode. And instead, we're going to move on to Astonishing X-Men, which is still Scott Lobdell, but now is joined by Jeff Loeb, and now we're getting pencils by Joe Mad.
Yeah, Jeff Loeb does a bit of work on this. Scott Lobdell comes in to keep this going, and it's interesting because this is a small story. Because while Magneto sends Nightcrawler off to get Destiny in Excalibur. He sends Generation Next off to get Ileana. He sends Gambit and the Externals to get the Emcron Crystal. This one, he's like, oh crap. It looks like Apocalypse's Sun Holocaust is gonna destroy Indianapolis. We've got to go. I understand we have a mission. We can't let hundreds of thousands of more people get cold. So he sends a team, and that team is led by Rogue, his wife, with Sabretooth, Wild Child, Blink, Morph, and Sunfire. And can we, for 1 second, talk about how good Age of Apocalypse Sunfire is?
We've definitely mentioned it before on the show, but the design...
Yeah, because it's the best look.
It's incredible. He looks fantastic.
He's wearing like a half kabuki mask with the red circle. It's a white mask with a red circle evoking the Japanese flag. His body is on fire, but in a way that is very separate from like the Human Torch. Like that's the trick of that costume. He's just an on fire dude, but they have enough detail on it of like shadows that make up his costume that he looks different and cool. And there's a over the top brutal scene in like issue 2 where they talk about Sunfire. Why do you care? Because Apocalypse destroyed all of Japan. He did murder the entire country of Japan. And then tried to drown Sunfire in the blood of every Japanese citizen.
It's rough.
It is rough. Also, that's metal as heck. That's like if you're going to do an over the top, like this is grim dark, like, yeah, go all the way. Go with the Mountain of Skulls. Drown a guy in the blood of his entire country. It rules. This ends up being a fight essentially between the X-Men and Holocaust, who is a new character from this, had been hinted at in X-Men comics in the past, but Holocaust is an interesting character and he has interesting dynamics with the rest of the team. What do you think, Adam?
Well, despite the unfortunate name, which
the name's bad.
It's not great. I understand why they used it, and it's not like Chris Claremont wasn't throwing the word around in his tenure on the X-Men either. But anyway, the character is Apocalypse's son. He's basically like this radioactive blob encased in a translucent armor, and a big chunk of this is a battle between him and Sabretooth. And Sabretooth comes out as such a fantastic character in this arc, as this heroic character, as sort of this universe's answer to Wolverine, but maybe even more heroic than that. But he's still weird. Like, he's got Wild Child as sort of like this mini-me version of him that's ready to go feral at any point.
Wild Child.
Yeah, who was an Alpha Flight character, correct?
I am not... I know he's an Alpha Flight character. I have not read any Alpha Flight, much less late Alpha Flight. Because Wild Child, I believe, is... No, he's from Alpha Flight number 1. He was a Gamma Flight trainee. Back in the original thing. And I guess, he really doesn't get much play until, like, Alpha Flight 70s, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Where he goes through some weird stuff where he like has to deal with feeling like he is subhuman and all this stuff. Like, he pops up throughout Alpha Flight, but doesn't get to be a big part until I believe that's not when does Lobdell get on the book? Whenever. Lobdell used to write Alpha Flight. I'm sure he had feelings about him. Anyway, they bring him over here, and it actually works pretty well because he's essentially a Wild Child on a chain.
Yeah.
That Sabretooth just kind of commands like a dog. And Sabretooth, like you said, he's like Wolverine, but even like a little better. Like, he even has his obligatory teen girl that he's mentoring. Like, they even understood, no, Wolverine... We got to have Blink in here so that Sabretooth can have his own Jubilee.
Right. And the dynamic between him and Blink is fantastic. We get a little of the backstory of how he rescued her. And the dynamic here of, the team going after Holocaust and, attempting repeatedly to try and kill him is just fantastic. And, we finally get to the end of this series. It looks like they're successful. And, it's basically like, go read Omega to find out what happens. Because, we've been... Well, I should say, they do stop Apocalypse's infinites from these sort of self-generating clones that are being used to kill all of humanity. They do stop the actual genocidal
infinite processing
event.
Plant.
Right. That stops, and it's glorious.
The one that's just north of the one that's like in Carmel, Indiana. For those of you who are keeping track, the one that's just
right.
like 20 miles north of downtown Indy. Which I don't believe Scott Lobdell is a Midwestern boy, but I know Mark Waid is from like Muncie. So I gotta imagine that he was like, no, what if it was just in Indiana?
I think the art here is fantastic. I absolutely love Joe Mad's stuff here. He's being inked by Dan Green and Tim Townsend. Townsend is, also working with Chris Bachalo on the Gen X stuff. It's just... It's primetime, baby. Like, this art just looks fantastic, and it really propels the story. I think it's a lot of fun. And is there anything else you wanted to talk about with it before we rank it?
We brought him up, but Morph, I think, is the secret ingredient to this, because Morph adds so much levity to this book that otherwise would be a book where a guy drowns in blood. And, like, that helps... It really does help, like, hold the book together and not feel, like, overwhelmed by the dark grittiness of everything going on. Like, this could have been... People think of Age of Apocalypse, and they think of stuff like the Kal and Yost X-Force or Remender Uncanny X-Force. Stuff that is very much like, no, this is important and dark, and people are gonna die. And now this book makes a lot of jokes constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it you're right. It is very self-aware. Like the way in which Sabretooth dies, like quote unquote mid-book is very similar to, Wolverine's death and quote unquote death in the Aussie era. And like there's these sort of like parallel things that they're doing that are very much like, hey, you can see what we're doing. We're aware of it, and we're going to play with this universe and have a good time with it, even if it's pretty savage. So why don't we put this on our big old list? I think this is going to be interesting.
I think it'll be interesting, too, because we'll get to it when we start comparing things, but I have a feeling this check of Age of Apocalypse, even though we're ranking it separately, will all fall in similar territory.
Yeah, I agree.
So we do have a big old list. There's 546 stories on this list, which is so many. The number one story on our list is the House of X, Powers of 10. The number 100 story on our list is that Kal and Yost Very Dark X-Force, Angels and Demons at 100. Number 200 on our list is Power Pack 20. That's the Proto Inferno. Number 300 is Schism. Number 400 on our list is Amazing Adventures 11 through 16. That's the Blue Furry Bouncing Beast origin story. Of Darkest Nights from Uncanny X-Men 442 and 443 is at number 500 on the list. And the bottom story on the list is the Draco.
Okay. So we have an existing Age of Apocalypse story in our top 25. At number 12 on our
Generation
list
Next.
is Generation Next, which I am still on record as saying I think that's probably the best of the books.
It is.
It's the most emotionally wrenching of any of them.
And it's the prettiest.
It's got the best artwork. It's just really, really good. However, I do think that this is definitely, at the very least, like a top 100 story. So I'm curious to know from you how high you would want to go.
I think it's going to be interesting because at 138 is Gambit and the Externals, which is our next highest Age of Apocalypse story. The bottom one is X-Man 1 through 4, and we'll get to him at some point. I didn't even do the beep beeps yet. We'll work those in somewhere. But Gambit of the Externals is 138. I think this is a good amount better than that. I think Messiah War is at 102, and I think this is better than Messiah War. Here's where I get somewhat caught up once we get into the hundreds, because I think there's some good stories here, and I think there's stories that are better than this, than Age of Apocalypse. Like, at 75 is the first Genosha arc. Mm-hmm. I think the first Genosha arc is better. I think...
Than this particular 4-issue arc.
Yes, than Astonishing X-Men from the Age of Apocalypse. I do. I think, like... Do you think this is better than, say, the Jungle Adventure from Wolverine?
Well, let's see. Where's Jungle
That's
Adventure?
At 81. That's at 81. Just a few spots below.
I do think this is better than that. I mean, I absolutely love and adore the Jungle Adventure, and I think it's an amazing piece of artwork. But this is doing something really daring and fun, and it's just classic in a way that's unlike just about anything else that was done at the time. I mean, it was very, very strange. So, I feel like I'm going a little bit higher than you there.
I want to hear where you think it may go.
I mean,
because this is collaborative. This is you and me.
Yeah, of
coming
course.
Into a synthesis.
You know, I'm looking up the list. At 58, we have the first 3 issues of X-Men Volume 2, Mutant Genesis. And, you know, as classic as that is, I think we're probably in similar territory there, you know?
I think Mutant Genesis is better than this. Here's what Mutant Genesis has, Adam. One, it has an incredible introduction to the X-Men. Like, you want to hand someone a evergreen, like, what is quote-unquote X-Men? You hand them number 1. Because what Lee and Claremont do is lay out the X-Men's entire deal in one great issue and follow it up with 2 more where Claremont goes, and now I'm going to tie this back into some garbage I did in the 70s. And I love it. It has its problems, but I love it. I love that that's what we remember Claremont going out on instead of the Muir Island saga.
Yeah, I'm just looking at...
I think
I agree
Genesis
that's probably
stronger.
a ceiling. That's probably a ceiling for me. But if I'm looking at what's below it, you know, like I think Multiple Man Mini is probably better than this. But I can also imagine this going above the Hemingway arc of Wolverine.
Yeah, this probably 65. Does go above the Hemingway. Here's what I'll say. I think you found the spot. I think this goes above Wolverine Blood and Claws, but below the Righteous Return of You-Know-Who from Excalibur 41 through 47. Actually, no. I'd put it above the Excalibur stuff. I would. Now that I'm saying this, I would.
I think, now that I'm looking at this, I would squeeze it in between Multiple Man and Magic. But Magic, that's a tough one. Because Magic is such like a key introduction to that character. I don't know. What do you think?
This has better art.
It does have better art.
Which the problem with the key problem with the Magic miniseries truly is that it has multiple B-list artists.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Okay, so this is going to be our new number 63?
This will be our new number 63, Astonishing X-Men, Age of Apocalypse.
All right, so what's next?
Now you got to be amazed by
Spider-Man?
the other team of X-Men. No. I love it when they steal Amazing from Spider-Man for things. Like, as much as I didn't like the series, I loved that they called the Age of X-Man Nightcrawler series the Amazing Nightcrawler. It told you what Nightcrawler was supposed to be in that universe, and what I think Nightcrawler can and should be in the Marvel universe itself, which is he can be Spider-Man but blue and cool. But this is the Amazing X-Men. It's by my personal best friend Fabian Nicieza, with pencils, but we haven't pulled out that one in a while, have we? we talk about Fabes a lot. I don't think I've pulled out my personal best friend in a spell. Andy Kubert pencils this one. Matt Ryan is inking them. It's 4 issues, and as weird of a team as the Astonishing team is, I almost feel like this team is weirder.
Oh, this team's way weirder. Come on.
I think the reason why this team is weird. So the Amazing team is, these are people that aren't supposed to be X-Men, right?
Right.
More or less.
Yeah. Sure.
The Amazing team is mostly like, these are people who are supposed to be X-Men, but this is a weird X-Men team, right?
It really is. So we've got Quicksilver. We have a very interesting, weird version of Dazzler. We have a like sort of out of control power version of Iceman, a streamlined version of Storm. We have Banshee, and Exodus, who is radically different than who we see him in the 616. Did I miss anything?
Dating Dazzler. No, that's the core of this team, and they are on a separate mission. So while the Astonishing team was stopping the Infinite Processing Plant in Holocaust, one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen, by the way, over in Indianapolis. These X-Men go to the East Coast to help let Sentinels into the U.S. Sentinels sent from the Human High Council over in Europe. We don't see them in these. They hang out in Big Ben that's been semi-demolished. It's kind of great there, too. Because they're trying to get all the humans out of America before they nuke it. Because they're kind of out of options to destroy Apocalypse's, threat to the world. Mm-hmm. So these X-Men kind of go undercover to try and let everybody through and save the humans. On the way, they meet Abyss, who is another one of the Horsemen. And Abyss is weird. You remember Abyss, Nightcrawler's brother?
Oh my god. From the Draco. As I mentioned earlier, each one of these minis has their own sort of like secret mission, but they also have their own secret, not secret, but they all have their own big bad. And in a lot of cases,
they all have their own final boss.
Right.
It's great.
Yes. This actually has two final bosses, and we'll get to the second one in a second, but, Abyss is still the big final boss, but Abyss is just basically like a bunch of loosely tangled ribbons that's connected by a head. And if he sucks you in, it's very similar to,
Cloak?
Who's the character from, no. The person who like eats the soul skinner. Remember the soul skinner? From, Yeah, it's very similar to that, except he's just this like tangle of ribbons, and every time the ribbons move, they go frip, 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 which, okay. So they have to battle against, they have this sort of Mission Impossible thing where they have to switch the sensors inside of these Sentinels, which it's also implied that the Sentinels are androids, which is very strange. They're much more human than we're used to, so that it doesn't kill these X-Men.
Mutants. Yeah.
They're later able to fool them with a logic puzzle, which I love, and rescue the people. And then after they think they've defeated Abyss, they have to then go save Bishop from the Magi, who we have not talked about yet.
The Magi are a cult of Madrox dupes. Yeah. That Apocalypse took Jamie Madrox hostage and just beat him up until there were about 1 billion dupes, and they were all so weak that they could be manipulated into doing Apocalypse's bidding.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
It's a great bit.
Pretty cool. And they do manage to rescue Bishop, and a lot of the last issue is just sort of transitioning you into Omega, right? I mean,
well, it's it's interesting, and this is why we struggled with how to break this up, because you get Alpha, and then the first issue of Astonishing has everyone still at the mansion, like it takes place right after Alpha, and it's setting up some of the stakes. And then the end of Amazing sets you up like everyone's now back from their mission, about to do the stuff at Omega.
Right.
And in between Alpha and Omega, there's a ongoing, or Alpha and, Amazing and Astonishing, excuse me. There's an ongoing subplot, which also gets followed up in Gambit in the Externals, about baby Charles Lencher getting kidnapped by Apocalypse, and also Apocalypse fighting Magneto, and then also kidnapping Bishop. So it's very interconnected, even if all of these minis are really about these X-Men going on one mission to fight one boss to get ready for the big mission at the end.
I have to compliment them, because, I think when we ranked Gambit in the Externals, one of the things that we noted was that the first half of the mini seemed kind of disjointed with the second half. But if you do read the entire event in publishing order, it's fascinating to see how well connected everything is. It's
weirdly fascinating how tight that is.
Right? And that's not easy to do, given the number of people that are involved here. Now, for this particular 4-issue thing, I think that Kubert's art is not nearly as good as the Joe Mad stuff that we were just talking about. I don't think it helps. I don't know if Ryan is his normal inker. I would have to go back.
I'm not familiar with him as an inker.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's part of it, but it does feel a little more rushed than we normally see from Andy. And I think that, unfortunately the story suffers a little bit in places. There's weird things like 2-page spreads where you have to turn the book, which are fun sometimes, but they don't really inform the storytelling here very much.
I love them. I wrote a review actually recently praising a story for using them. But also they need to be used in discretion.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they physically force a reader to reorient themselves. And if you just use them for no good reason, it's bad, and I don't like it. That was my Wolverine review. If y'all want to go check that out, that was by Adam Kubert.
Yeah.
By the way, Matt Ryan did ink Andy from X-Men 25 through 37, or through 44, so right before this. But yeah, okay. I guess so I don't associate him with.
Yeah, maybe they're just both under the gun here. It does feel like they're, pedal to the metal trying to get this book done. And it's not, I want to be clear, it does not look bad by any stretch. It just looks more rushed than an Andy Kubert comic usually does for this era. So I think that the story as a whole kind of suffers because of that. And I don't think this is as good as Astonishing.
Well, I think the big thing on this is the team dynamic here just isn't as strong. Like, Storm is underwritten. I think Quicksilver, they have an interesting dynamic where he has the same inferiority complex with his dad that he does in the real world when Magneto is his dad, and even a lot of the times when he's not his dad, to be frank.
Right.
But I also feel like, I don't know, like this whole team here, Iceman's a super cool design.
Banshee looks awesome. He's got like a sinister cape.
He's fine. It's not my favorite. I think these designs are among besides the Iceman one, which is frankly just the Lee Weeks design from that one issue of X-Men where Emma steals his body. More or less,
it's pretty similar. Yeah,
it's what if that cool design was what Iceman always looked like,
and you would be forgiven if you thought, looking at the Dazzler, that it was just Crystal from the Inhumans. It's not that dissimilar. So I agree. There's a blandness to this in terms of like sort of the really radical looks that we see elsewhere.
I almost feel like this book, more than any other book in Age of Apocalypse, is the book where they stuff the plot points that they need to get through. Like, it's cool that there is a Magneto and Apocalypse fight, but that feels very much like they are shifting gears for half an issue to make sure that beat gets in there because it's in service of the larger Age of Apocalypse plot, not because it makes Amazing X-Men better. Yeah. No,
I would agree. I think that aside from the mission that they're on, the stakes don't feel as high as they do in fighting Holocaust in Astonishing. Abyss is just not as interesting a villain as characters like Sugarman, are in other minis. So
Abyss has got a great design, though. They should use him again.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can see him being really cool in different artists' hands. And it's a fun character. He does use a lot of pop culture references, which brings up some interesting questions about like what actually happened in the timeline leading up to this. But
hey, just shut up. Just shut up. Don't worry about it. Okay?
Don't ask too many questions.
Yeah, no, don't. No, I agree. It's probably below Astonishing.
I do think it's better than Gambit in the Externals, though.
I do think it's better than Gambit in the Externals. On this particular one, I'm looking at where this might fall. Because this is not my favorite Age of Apocalypse. I mean, this is late in Fabian Nicieza's time on the X-Men.
He's out of there, man. He's like, peace.
He knows it's up.
Isn't he listed as plotter on the 4th issue? Let me look. I'm almost positive he's not listed as writer.
He hadn't been fired from X-Men on this. He gets fired from X-Force during Age of Apocalypse, essentially. Yeah. Like
Fabian, I'm just showing you Zach this on the camera.
He's just listed as plot. Which means Bob Harris wrote that last issue, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, Bob, Jeff, shoot, Mark, Scott, can we just get this one out the door? Fabian put it in, and he's saying, you got my scripts. I don't know. I'm sure if we asked Fabian again, he'd tell us the truth. He's a very honest person because he doesn't need the work.
Nope. He's humble to a fault.
I do think I agree better than Gambit in the Externals. Do you think this is better than the first arc of Ultimate X-Men?
Which is
the Tomorrow People? 110.
Oh, I don't think I was going to go that high. I don't think I was going to go that high. Because, like, at 125, we have Acts of Vengeance, Uncanny X-Men.
At 126, we got that Acts of Vengeance story where Magneto throws Red Skull into a hole. That is better than this.
Yeah. 127 is Age of X-Men Extremists.
I'm biased, but I like that one better.
I think I do, too. I do think I like this better than Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, though, at 128.
Okay. We can trade one Kubert story for another.
All right, cool. So this is going to be our new 128. And now that we've ranked those two, let's talk about Omega and see where the bookends go.
Omega, which is Scott Lobdell and Mark Waid with Roger Cruz. Omega's wild, I think, because it takes these 8 different plot threads that, while they more or less wrapped up each story, they're still very active. Like, there's still something they have to resolve. Like, they have the MacGuffin, now they have to use it and utilize it.
Yep. You're absolutely right, because not only do you get all the teams from all the different books coming back together, but they actually have to use Ileana and Destiny to go into the Macron Crystal to get Bishop back to rewrite the timeline. And X-Man is there to kick the crap. Wait, what?
Wait, what did you just say, Adam? Sorry, you broke up there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said that they use Ileana and Destiny.
Beep, 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 It's an X-Men update. You remember at the end of the Age of Apocalypse X-Men story when we talked about that?
Yes.
And he killed Sinister and flew away. He's like, now I'm going to get revenge on Apocalypse. He does. That's his part of this.
He sure does kick Apocalypse in the jaw and say, "This one's for Forge."
Man, he loved Forge so much.
Oh, it's his dad.
Oh, poor guy. Anyway, but because this isn't his story, he can't be the one to defeat Apocalypse. He does that thing where you get into a fight and then he gets distracted by a different fight, so he fights Holocaust and he takes a shard of the Mcron crystal and stabs it into Holocaust, and then they both get transported back into the 616 and it rules. It's bad that we have to deal with X-Men now, but that scene kind of does own. Because that's the thing about this. There are a bunch of plot points, and they kind of all, like, they nail the landing in a way that
absolutely
they shouldn't be
landing.
able to.
No, they shouldn't be able to, because you've got X-Men fighting Apocalypse. You also have Jean Grey telepathically blocking out the nukes which are coming from Europe, right? Because essentially they've decided
right from the Wolverine series or the Weapon X series,
they're going to get blown to smithereens. So they know that the nuclear explosion is going to come and wipe all of them out. So can they get Bishop back in time to rewrite the ending of Legion Quest to get the 616 back on track? And it works.
And at the same time, you have great beats that still land in here with things like Angel deciding that he can't be a bystander anymore. He has to choose a side, and he's going to choose the side of the Angels. Mm-hmm. You have the Summers brothers fighting and killing each other. One of them killing one, and then Wolverine killing the Weapon X, excuse me. There is a Wolverine in Age of Apocalypse, but the less said about him, the better. It's from Chronicles. Don't worry about it. We're not ranking that for a while, I don't think. The guy with one hand does stab Havoc and says, "Yeah, you're dead now because you just killed your brother." We'll get to Factor X at some point. That Havoc sucks. It's awesome. But they land that. They land the MacGuffin. Like they even add another heart-wrenching emotional beat to Generation Next, where there's a part where Colossus has realized so much that he sacrificed to get his sister. And he's like, I can't let her... After all I've been through, I can't do this. And Gambit tries to stop him. And then gets knocked out of the way. And Shadowcat says, "Peter, we have to do this. You have to stop, my love." And he keeps running, trying to get to his sister. And she doesn't phase because she believes in their love that he will stop. And he doesn't. And it's another, like, twist of the knife from all of the trauma of Generation Next.
Yeah.
Like, they get the heroics from the X-Men books. Like, they get everything that the event was. And they put it into this oversized issue.
Yeah. And it really would have been easy for them to just say, we got Bishop back. And Bishop fixes the situation so Legion doesn't kill Charles. And just call it a day. But they very intelligently go back to the AOA for the last couple of pages and end the story there with Magneto literally ripping Apocalypse in half. And then everybody just sort of waiting for the bombs to drop and kill them.
Well, because they don't know. They don't know if it worked.
They don't.
They're doing all of this based on the hope that this is going to all work out.
Right.
And the fact that they are willing to sacrifice anything for a chance at a better world, it really makes the story work in a way that it shouldn't, because this is a stupid, grimdark thing where people have dumb face tattoos. Like, this should not be a story that ends with emotional resonance of Magneto and Rogue staring out into the abyss, accepting that, they believe they've done some good, but they will never really know if any of this was worth it. But they know that they made a choice for the betterment of their world, and they think that things are going to be, they believe it was the right one.
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. It's
I think
good.
it's amazing. I think it's amazing. And it's funny because they kind of do a similar thing at the end of Legion Quest to try and really like drum up all these emotions and make you feel like it's the end of the world. You know that it's not going to be the end of the world for those characters, that those characters are going to come back in that form. But this version of these characters, you have to say goodbye to them. And it really, really just... I think if we're judging both of these together, it's a really landmark choice to shut down the books and reintroduce the universe in this way, and do it successfully so that you introduce the world in a way that all of these miniseries are actually going to make sense. And like you said, they stick the landing. It's pretty impressive.
It's impressive that Alpha truly does present like a pretty well-formed world.
Yes.
Like from Jump Street, you flesh it out with these minis. You flesh out these characters. And unlike a lot of alternate universe stories end with the character saying, well, that was a weird thing we all remember.
Yeah.
And then going on with their lives. Age of X-Men did that as much as I enjoy it. Age of X did that. The recent Jason Aaron Heroes Reborn, for example, did exactly that. Like, this is a tried and true superhero trope. And what Age of Apocalypse posits is, at the end of the day, no, their lives and their realities were just as real as the 616 stuff. And if they're saying we're going to eliminate our world to save this one, then you actually have to lose these characters. You actually have to feel the sacrifice. And I will give them credit. For like 5 years, they let you lose that. I mean, they kept a few things over. They brought over X-Man and Holocaust and Sugar Man and Dark Beast. But, like, none of them were, like, the stars of Age of Apocalypse. They were mostly, here's some new villains we can pull in, and also Nate Gray.
Yeah. Weird choice. Weird choice.
I get it, because his book sold well, and it made sense, and they continued running that thing for 75 issues.
So weird. So weird.
Cannot understand it.
I'm going to say something bold here,
it
though.
Works.
I think that this is better than Astonishing, which was at 63.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so. I am almost viewing this as like a Lord of the Rings, Return of the King-esque placement.
Sure.
In that it is more of a summation of the quality of the event as a whole, instead of these two issues. Like, because there's no other good way to sum it up. Because the Age of Apocalypse actually is good, and
right.
if you've been putting it off because it feels weird, no, go read it. Is it 90s as heck? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the dream of the 90s. This is the stuff that the Image guys wanted to do, but never really got in the same way. Like, how many times did they try and pull off a big old 90s crossover? How many spectacular failures did they have? This is a success.
Yeah, well, and it's just pushing the envelope so much further, right? I mean, I just got done talking about Executioner's song with Chris and Christy, and, that is like an action-adventure to the max story, but it's still not pushing the envelope in a way that is even I gotta edit that out. Affecting the publishing schedule in this radical way. So I think it's really successful. Now the question is, how high does it go? I still don't think this is better than Generation Next. Do you?
No. Generation Next is a singular work compared to this. Like, Generation Next rules. I do think this... So number 50 is Marvel's number 2. And I think this is better than that. I would say that this is better than our top-ranking Inferno story at 44. Like, I think Age of Apocalypse is a better crossover, pound for pound, than Inferno. I'm comfortable saying that.
Yep.
I think this is better than number 42, X-Men Grand Design, which, frankly, a little high. High as I've gotten older.
Okay.
I don't think at 37... Havoc and Wolverine X-Man or Meltdown. I think Meltdown's better than this. And I struggle between Grand Design and Meltdown only because there are some fan favorites, like some personal favorites of mine in there. At 38, you have Generation X 1 through 3. 39 is Wolverine and the X-Men 17, which is Jason Aaron getting out of Mike Allred's way. Number 40 is New Mutants Dead Souls. Number 41 is Age of X-Man Prisoner X. I need your thought and guidance, Adam, because I'm too close to at least 2 of these stories. Because I love Dead Souls and I love Prisoner X. I do. I love them.
I think I would go even higher than that. This is definitely better than the Mike Allred Wolverine and the X-Men dupe issue at 39. I agree that I struggle a little bit with whether this is better than the first 3 issues of Gen X, just because I'm such a Chris Bachalo fan.
But it probably is. Is, right?
Yeah, I'm just from, just from a story perspective, I keep looking up the list and going, well, I think this is actually better than... I don't think we could say, realistically, that this is better than, like, at 29, the Brood Saga. I don't think that it is quite as emotionally devastating as What If Magic at 33. But I can see it better than Uncanny 200 at 36. Okay. All right. I'm going to say my ceiling is at 35, Life Death. But even that has the ROM stuff. What?
It does have... Here's what I'll say. Okay. My hard ceiling is 33, What If Magic. What If Magic is better?
I agree.
What If Magic is better? What If Magic is a comic that one singular panel of it can break me?
I agree.
It's so good. Oh my gosh. Philippe, if you haven't been... Y'all know Leah. Leah's great. Leah's a friend of the show. Leah does great work there. But Felipe Andrade is doing such incredible work in that comic. And if you are not reading Andrade and Ram V's The Many Deaths of Layla Starr that just wrapped up last week, please go read that comic. It is one of my favorite comics of the year. It's absolutely fantastic. It's from Boom. It's 5 issues. It's so good. I need you to read it because I need more people to talk about it with because I love this comic. Come on. Regardless, I think is this better or worse than the time that Mysterio tried to get revenge on the X-Men and then Scott got married at the end? At Uncanny X-Men 174 and 175.
Yes.
Then that's where it stays. It's at 34, and we're not going to argue it anymore. It's Age of Apocalypse, Alpha and Omega, but really we're talking about Age of Apocalypse here.
Man, good stuff. That was a lot of fun.
I like the Age of Apocalypse a lot. I liked it when I was a kid, just reading about it, because I've said it a billion times. I was the equivalent of the kid who pays attention to superhero comics by reading Wikipedia articles. Wikipedia didn't exist when I was that age. I'm not that young, Adam. But
I know.
I do remember when Wikipedia was first around, and I was like, "Oh, this is neat. Oh, I can learn a lot about the fall of the Prussian Empire now."
Oh my God. That was your first article link.
No. My first article. Here's what opened Wikipedia to me, and it's how it clicked. They had a Wikipedia entry for Homestar Runner, and I was young enough at the time to be like, "Wait, they have detailed information about this dumb cartoon on the internet?" Funny. They have everything. This is an everything website.
That's great.
That was good. That was a good episode. Glad we did it. I want to thank Jay Van Veen for suggesting that we enter the Age of Apocalypse. It was great. If you want to be like Jay, the Patreon, please support it. It helps keep the show going. it helps pay all of the great writers at Comics XF. And we just like doing it. We like seeing it. You get cool rewards. Like you can get an episode of whatever you want. Like the next episode we're gonna do, which is all about a specific what if story. We didn't time this for Roy the Boy's what if show.
Good
but
timing.
It is happening during it. Yeah, great timing on our end.
Kind of accidental.
Oh, absolutely by mistake. Hey Adam, what you got going on right now?
Guys, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. I just started one of those Ko-Fi things, or coffee. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. Ko-Fi.
I think it's Kofi, but it's
Kofi?
it's the dumb Silicon Valley speak of, hey, you can give Adam $3 and buy him a coffee. So yeah.
Yeah. If you go that route, I don't drink coffee. I drink Coke Zero, but I could definitely get Coke Zero for a couple bucks. But I'm also doing commissions right now. So if anybody's interested in just getting like a quick sketch or want something a little bit more in-depth, just hit me up. And
please do. Adam's a fantastic artist, and I am so happy to see his stuff. We haven't mentioned it on the show in a while, but Adam's name came up in a casual conversation with people who didn't know that he was one of my good friends. I say casual conversation. It was online on a Discord server I was screwing around with. And they were like, oh, I know Adam as a podcast host. I didn't know that he did art. And I got mad for a second, and I realized, no, this is just another person who gets to experience Bish and Jubes for the first time, which is the comic that Adam did. That's like a graphic novel length fan X-Men comic that rules.
I just sent somebody a link to it the other day. So, hey, who knows? Hopefully one day I'll make some more comics. And what did you say we're doing next week, Zach?
We're doing some what if stuff.
Awesome.
Here's the dirty little secret to our listeners. As of recording, we have the episode that was requested and then 2 blank spots because we're scratching our heads. We'll get there. We'll be there. We'll be fine by Tuesday. But until then, this has been Val the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!